Okay, I'm gonna have to go in on my phone again, guys. I'm sorry that I just keep.
That's fine, Liz. We can get started on this.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So I'm gonna call in on my phone and use my phone. Okay.
Okay. Yep. We'll see you shortly. So we'll get started here. If anyone has joined us. I'm sorry. What? Okay. So thank you all for attending the second and final forum. Appreciate you taking the time this evening. I know it's a little late. I guess this is the time we did it last year, and you know, it just so happened to happen right after the debate, so everyone got to enjoy that who wanted to watch it. And we wanted to give everyone time to spend with their families before we got into this. So as you know, I'm board director Josh Bowens. We'll have Liz Vidal with us asking questions, and John from IT is here to help us with everything. He's awesome and knows what he's doing, so that's great. Just like before, we're going to go through candidate introductions. So you guys will all have 2 minutes to introduce yourselves to the community. Just remember that, you know, some people haven't seen the first one. Some people don't watch the stuff on YouTube. So if anything seems redundant, that's all right. You're probably talking to a, you know, different audience here, some of the same folks, but I'm sure there's some other people that want to get to know you. After that, you were all given questions once again prior to this forum that you can think about, and you'll have 3 minutes to answer those questions. After that segment, we will go into audience participation. We'll take questions from the audience, and for those of you watching right now, there is a Q&A set up, so you can leave your questions in there. I would just, you know, please make sure everyone gets a chance to ask a question. So try not to do two-part questions. If you absolutely have to have a two-part question, you know, ask the first part, and then maybe we'll come back to the other part once everyone had a chance to, you know, get their questions out, because we've got a lot of stuff to go through here. And for those questions, you'll have 2 minutes to answer. And then we'll do our final outros from the candidates. And so I can give you guys a 1 minute warning if you'd like. The timer thing's a little weird with Zoom, so I think it's best if I can just give you, if you'd like a 1 minute warning, or if you want to keep track of time, or if you want me to just cut you off. I thought last time was fine. If, you know, if you would prefer something else, just let me know. But I'll give you a little shout when the time is up. And then we'll just go in order of ballots, which everyone should have received their ballots. If not, you'll be getting them in the next couple of days. So, you know, for those of you who are watching this and getting to know your candidates, thank you. We appreciate you, you know, doing that. And from there, I think we can get going. So starting us off will be Mr. Dave Ralston. Take it away, Dave.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Ralston. I have lived in Sudden Valley for the last 40 years. It's been an incredible place to live and raise a family. I want to see this continue. My background, I've worked in public service for over 40 years. This includes being in the front line as a general laborer, emergency responder, and a supervisor. For the last 10 years of my career, I was the fire chief of South Walker Fire Authority. And now the fire authority serves the communities of Chuckanut, Lake Samish, U Street, Geneva, and Sudden Valley. You know, prior to that, 9 years, I was the fire chief for Whatcom County Fire District 2, which would serve the areas of Sudden Valley and Geneva. If I'm elected, I will bring my years of experience and leadership to the board of directors to ensure an open forum of communication is within the Sudden Valley community. I understand that the directors set the culture for our community, and I will work hard to ensure honesty, transparency, and fairness in all of my decision making. I will help mold the board of directors into a team and will be a community representative with an open heart and mind. I respect all Sudden Valley members, especially when we have differing opinions. My vision for the Sudden Valley community is to continue to maintain our assets and the amenities we provide. I will advocate for clear financial goals for our roads and capital reserve programs. I'll do this with the understanding that we need to have reasonable and predictable dues that ensure our day-to-day operations are met. We have a limited amount of revenues, and prioritizing is what the board is governed to do. I will be an advocate to ensure the Sudden Valley community is well prepared for emergency conditions that may occur. This could be a severe weather event, wildfire, earthquake, any other condition that would require the community to be self-sustaining for a period of time. Commitment from all community members is necessary to achieve this level of preparedness. We are fortunate to have volunteer groups and committees currently meeting on a regular basis for planning and training. I will continue to support these groups in their efforts. This year has been unprecedented due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a board, we need to evaluate our current finances, revisit future planning, and adjust if needed. Let's make sure we do this right. I believe through good stewardship of our finances and open communication within the community, we can set a path for success. I'm a candidate who cares about Sudden Valley and its future. I have the skills, commitment, and dedication to serve on the board and represent the community's voice. I'm asking for your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Next, we have board candidate Brian Cope. Brian, when you're ready, your 2 minutes will begin.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're all having a good evening. I've moved here in 2017 in the summer, June, with my wife Ann, and I've been living in the Northwest since 2016 when I took a tenure track position at Walsham Community College. And so I'm really happy to be here. I've been teaching writing in higher ed since 2001. I've had a ton of different experiences, including grant writing and research and writing and working in law offices. And I actually originally had a business degree. So I have lots of experiences and lots of working experiences for sure that I can draw upon in the board. I feel that we need a board that takes action instead of blaming the community for their choices and inaction. I hope that the phrase kicking the can will come to an end in Sudden Valley after November. That poor excuse has been used too often by those who do the kicking. I am running to ensure that we have a beautiful and safe place to live, while at the same time, as the sign says in Gate 5, I want to help you protect your wallet. We can accomplish this by being fiscally responsible and transparent. Fiscal responsibility is not an anti-amenity, but pro-responsibility. We should be able to have both. Transparency and fiscal responsibility can transform the reputation of Sudden Valley from one of dark hollows and shady politics run by a small group to an inclusive place where residents can live joyfully amid stunning natural beauty. The resulting trust and unity will create stable neighborhoods with long-term neighbors rather than a revolving door of real estate signs and moving trucks. I want to acknowledge those families who have been devastated or impacted by the majority bod's recent rise in dues. I also want to acknowledge those who moved because they felt so discouraged. We have lost a lot of good people here because of this majority bod's failed policies. But by voting forward in this election, you will have a majority bod committed to fiscally responsibility, keeping dues as low, transparent, while prioritizing our roads, forests, community safety, and emergency preparedness, as well as maintaining our assets based on the interest of the majority, not the whims of a few. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next up, we have Kim Harris. Kim, when you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Kim Harris, and I am running with the Forward slate, Brian Cope, Joel Dobbins, and Justin Bauer. We are running because we want to have Sudden Valley be fiscally responsible and transparent, and we want to get rid of the Sudden Valley Vision 2020 group that ran a couple of years ago. had a vision that apparently only 14%, in my opinion, of people in the community wanted. When we saw what their vision was, it became necessary to raise dues to create this exclusive resort community that they had in mind. But the other 86% of the people that voted on dues limitations did not share that vision. The Forward Slate shares the vision of the majority of the community, which is to have fiscal responsibility, take care of our community, but look at the wants and needs of the people. I am on the long range planning committee that helped develop the most recent survey that we put out to help find out just exactly what it is that our community prioritizes. And myself and the Forward Slate will work to prioritize what the community wants, the majority of the community wants. Who am I? I'm a mom, a wife, and I've lived in Sutton Valley since 2010. I would like to, my vision of Sutton Valley is a place that people want to live and not where people have to live because it's the only place they can afford while they're waiting to buy a house in town. A lot of people I've noticed come to Sutton Valley because it's beautiful and they get involved with the local politics and the HOA stuff. And then they put up their for sale signs and move away. But wouldn't it be nice if we could work together to make Sutton Valley a place where people actually wanted to live, where they wanted to live, where it was so, the real estate was so valuable that there was a line of people waiting to live here rather than the revolving door. I would also like to see the community kept safe, but our emphasis for myself and with Ford is putting the priority of the needs of the community first and making sure that Sutton Valley stays affordable. I work in real estate administration. I also own my own business where I do equity, diversity, and bias awareness training. And so in my heart, I want to keep Sutton Valley equitable and make it financially diverse and make it so people can afford to stay here. Before COVID, dues doubling was a shock to people. And this year with COVID-19 and people losing their jobs, everybody doesn't have a cushy retirement from a civil service job where they can play with money and don't mind if dues double over. Some of us are working class people that want to keep Sutton Valley affordable. And I would like to work towards that. I'm also a community builder. At the beginning of this year, I won a 2020 Martin Luther King Jr. Community Building Award. And I would like to bring that. I have lots of ideas for things to do to build this community and make us actually start having fun and enjoying living here and enjoying each other. So if you're interested in some of the things I said, vote forward for this election season. And thank you.
Thank you, Kim. 1 second here, guys. Handling a technical difficulty. All right, sorry about that. I believe next on our list is Joel Dobbins. Joel, when you're ready, please go ahead.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, my name is Joel Dobbins, running on the Forward Slate. Very happy to be doing that. Some of the people on the Forward Slate I met through this, just for this election, and I'm really excited about that because they're very cool people. And it's great that really what brought us all together was just seeing that, I think hearing repeatedly, you should have thought about that before you moved to an HOA, and we're not seeing a functional HOA here. So a little bit about me. I live in Gate 3 with my wife, Emily, my son, Cedar. He's 1.5. So risk management is a big part of my day, especially working from home. I think all the time about those kind of risks, and that extends into the community, seeing kids huddled by stop signs in the early morning in winter when it's dark, in the road sometimes. Back before COVID, when I was driving to work, I would see that, and It would be great if we had places for kids to stand other than the road in the early morning. That's an important safety issue to me, just thinking about my son growing up here, just as an example of safety. But yeah, you should have thought about that before you moved to an HOA. What we're seeing is that the democracy that we assume that we have doesn't really apply, hasn't applied for the last few years. And that's been concerning to a lot of people. And that's what brought us together. And that's why when people ask us all these detailed questions about what would you do about whatever, the answer always goes back to, well, let's listen to what people want to do. We haven't even heard people yet. So that's why I'm running. I want to listen to people and bring that back to, bring that voice back to the community and go from there. We don't know the problems that we have until we actually listen and find out. So let's listen and then let's come up with solutions. Go forward.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Scott Walsh. Scott, please go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, everyone. First of all, my board of directors campaign is my own. I'm paying for it myself and I'm running independently. I'm not a part of a slate. Despite some of the unverified gossip that I've seen in Sudden Valley Raw and Sudden Valley Connections, I have no handlers and I have no agendas. I will be available to listen by phone or in person, not just on Zoom or in meetings. And I'm not going to conduct debates on any Facebook forums. I've spent my entire working life as a working firefighter, most of it as a supervisor. I retired as a fire captain after I was injured on the job. So I come from a working class family. My dad never made any more than $8,000 in a year. So I know what financial problems can be. I'm running because I felt that something that I could do immediately for Sudden Valley is to try and work to make this community a safer community. Something that we could have an immediate change in, mostly through public education and any other resources that we might be able to partner with. I do not believe that we can stand alone as an island. Sudden Valley or Sudden South Whatcom Fire Authority is an agency that has a large area to cover. They are not Sudden Valley's own fire department. Sudden Valley is a service area that they serve. I can tell you that if you were to have a medical emergency in Sudden Valley, you would get an engine company. But if you had an event happen at the same time, it's going to be some time before another emergency unit would get here to help. While I understand that there have been a lot of issues in the past, I'm not looking out the rearview mirror, I'm looking out a windshield. And while community safety is my priority, if elected to the board, it does not mean that I will not give my best effort to produce a vote that represents everyone. I support direct management here in Sudden Valley. I do not want to see a homeowners association come back in here. I don't know if that's in the plans for the forward foursome, but the last time they did a management company here, as I understand, in Sudden Valley, it was an awful failure. So I support a direct on-site board, general manager, management team to administer to the affairs here in Sudden Valley. That way you have direct contact with your management team and they will get the direction from the board and go about doing their job. Lastly, if elected, I'll work hard. I'll exert due diligence and research. I'll ask questions and I will expect, albeit I'm aged, and a term that we used in my day was completed staff work. And that meant the staff tried to figure out every question that I could, as a board member, possibly ask and be prepared to answer that. If they can do that, I have no questions to ask. And the meeting moves on quickly.
All right, are you good, Scott? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that I believe Sudden Valley is a beautiful environment and I love it here. We're in our forever home. And I do care about every member and not just a current constituency that may come and pass. I'm for every member. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next up, we have Justin Bauer. Justin, when you're ready, please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Justin Bauer. Our family of four has lived in Sudden Valley for a little over 2 years with our kids, virtually now attending Geneva Elementary and Culshan Middle School. It's been fun. I earned my bachelor's degree from the University of Colorado in advertising and marketing. I currently work for International Game Technology, helping Washington run their lottery. In other professional careers, I've been a brewmaster for 13 years and I've also worked as a paralegal and a deputy county clerk. I believe my diverse and educational professional background will help me bring fresh and an open-minded approach to serving on the board. To answer Mr. Walsh's concern right away, no, I personally am not in favor of any management team or outside entity coming in to take over the job I'm running for right now. We're not looking to pass the buck here on the forward four. Also, I'll say why I'm running. Safety is an incredibly important issue, but it's not the only one I can think of. I also want to keep Sudden Valley a beautiful place, keep everything maintained, and if not more improved, especially infrastructure. And I also want to keep Sudden Valley affordable. I do not think this needs to become a bedroom community for Seattle telecommuters or for people to slowly get pushed out of here that can't afford Bellingham and eventually can't afford Sudden Valley anymore. I do want there, like my running mates, to be more honesty and transparency on the board. The main reason I'm running is the explosion in dues in the recent years and the loss of any real democratic process in our budgeting and in dues increases. It is virtually impossible to defeat these issues with the current voting process. And on top of that, the complete disregard I saw in the current board majority, the current folks on there, after we passed the 7% dues limitation and the board, and that was effective immediately, by the way, and was promptly ignored, and a larger dues increase was passed through. I think that showed a complete disregard for their neighbors and for our little local rule of law. And finally, I want to say I am running with some other folks here. Going back to fiscal responsibility, it's a little easier to put 4 names on one sign than 1 name on 4 signs. So I guess we have that wisdom going. And, you know, we're not robots and we're not under the control of any mysterious people here. We all have individual ideas, and I look forward to disagreeing with whomever I'm elected with on some things and agreeing on others, because I want to listen. I want to learn from our current board members that are continuing on, because I think that's a wise thing to do rather than jumping in with preconceived notions or agendas. Thank you. And that's all I have, and please vote.
Thank you, Justin. Just so everyone knows, we have approximately 32 people watching this forum right now. I know a lot of people like to know the attendance.
That makes me nervous.
Yeah, you guys got to watch what you say here. No, so next on, since Michael Wadsworth has joined us, as you probably have taken a guess, Michael, we are doing our intros right now. So when you are ready, your 2 minutes begins.
I kind of had a different understanding of what was going to go on. I thought you were going to ask me questions and then I was going to have a closing comment, but I guess I moved here 5 years ago. My wife and I wanted a home that we could have a nicer home and a nice community, be able to have our grandkids and kids out and take part in all the wonderful amenities out here. And we moved in and met our nice neighbors and people up and down the street, and then got into the first election and found out that all was not rosy in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. And so we've taken an interest. I opened my home to birth the concept of, what do the homeowners want? I mean, what do you guys want? Let's talk. How else do we do this? And everybody said that you'll never get anybody to vote and da 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 da. And we achieved, out of those groups gathering and overflowing over to the other meeting places, we developed a bylaw change that, as Justin said, was ignored, and achieved record voting turnouts. And that's been my thrust since I got here, is your vote is your voice. And that's why I'm running for NNE. I think I've developed trust with people, and I think that if they have people they trust in positions of responsibility, we'll have more peace and more unity and more community out here. And that's my whole thrust. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks for joining us. Next up, we have Nancy Alianak. When you're ready, Nancy, please go ahead. And for everyone watching at home, we are talking to NNE candidates right now.
Thank you, Josh. My name's Nancy Alianak, and I am running for one of the 4 slots that are open on the NNE committee. Now, there are 3 of us running for those 4 slots. So instead of campaigning, I'd like to draw your attention to measure 3 on our ballot, which is a direct initiative amendment to the bylaws. Direct initiative means that members or voters can petition to put a new resolution, a rule, a regulation, or an amendment directly on the ballot. Washington State has that. California does. Texas did not. And it would have been nice and very useful to have had it. Anyway, this is measure 3. And if we can petition 10% to sign, then we can get it directly on the AGM ballot for voting members to reject or pass. Now, that is a direct voice in how the association is governed without the added expense of a special general meeting and the organization effort that goes into the SGM. And for members, measure 3 is a good thing. So please vote for our new direct initiative amendment, which is measure 3 on the bylaws. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks for the schooling there, Nancy. We appreciate it. Next up, we have Steve Workman. Steve, thanks for joining us again. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thanks so much for hosting this. It's been great to actually listen to everybody expressing their opinions on how things should go. I've been living in Sudden Valley with my family, wife and kids, for almost 4 years now, I think. We moved in over Thanksgiving weekend of 2016, and that was a fun weekend. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I'm running for NNE. And basically the whole goal behind why I'm going for this spot is I want to make sure that we have open and fair communication in our elections, that everyone is able to have their voice and get their vote out there. And that's basically it in a nutshell.
Short and sweet. Thank you, Steve. Next up, we have our sole attendee for ACC, Karen Williams. Thanks for joining us again, Karen. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Josh. Like Nancy and the other positions on the ACC than candidates, so I guess that's why the other 2 candidates aren't showing up. But anyway, they are also already serving on the ACC like I am as volunteer fill-ins for people who resigned. So actually, I've already been on the ACC since late June. I've attended 7 meetings so far, and so I'm getting a feel for how it goes. Anyway, to back up, I'm a retired engineer. I have some spare time right now, and let's see. I started working. I got my college degree in Ohio and started working there. And in 1992, moved to the Pacific Northwest, to the Seattle area. And then in 2014, 6 years ago, we moved here to Sudden Valley. I really love it here. It's beautiful. I really enjoy the lake. And I do think that the ACC committee here has a more important role to play than it does in most HOAs. We don't only check paint colors and whether your house looks nice. We actually also do a lot of environmental sort of protection work for keeping erosion under control from contractors and protecting trees. So it's a little bit more of a job than most HOAs. Anyway, I do feel that my background as an engineer, a bridge designer for highway departments, makes me good at looking at plans and specifications. So I feel like I'm qualified to look at new construction plans, not just for whether they're pretty, but also for whether the driveway has the right slope, it's not too steep. The contours make sense, they're also not too steep. There should be a retaining wall here maybe, or things like that. So I do feel that my background is helpful for this particular job. So that's part of why I'm running. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. So next up, we're going to go to some questions that the candidates were giving in advance, much like the first forum. So the first one will be for the board director candidates, and this actually came from a member. And We're going to start from the top with Mr. Dave Ralston because I could tell he's getting lonely. It's been a while since we've heard him talk. Liz, if you want to take us away on this, that would be great.
Okie doke. Thanks, Josh. Hi, Dave.
Hello.
Okay. So here's the question. It's a two-parter. I think you've already seen it, but I will do my best to read it in this very, very small type I have in front of me. There was a lot of discussion over the summer about non-residents using our beaches and parks. Are there any possible ideas and/or solutions you would support as a board member to address this issue? What is your opinion about use fees for members and non-members?
Okay, thank you, Liz. My first comment, I guess, is, I've been here for a long time, and when I first moved here, Sudden Valley was closed. It's a private entity, and we did not have non-residents, use any of the amenities. We had security guards, we had gates, and we had, ways that they were checked. You had to be a member, and I understand over the years that the Sudden Valley Association has changed its tax status, which part of that had to do with allowing public use to the beaches and the parks. To be honest with you, I don't know what those numbers were. I've seen numbers, it's been a long time, but I know it was money back to the association. It relieved some financial pressures up for some other work that could be done. I think it's important. I think, if I were going to look and change some of that things, I'd have to go back in and look and see what it is it would cost to make those amendments and change. I'm not familiar with that. Can we actually have a non-resident fee? I don't know. I would be interested in that. But right now I know the way it's set up, community members can come in and use it, and also the public can be down and use the beaches. There's no checks of who comes in or out. And so I don't really have any ideas other than perhaps to look at the laws that were set up for the tax status, to understand that more personally, to know if there are some options that could be looked at. Are there ways that we could generate some revenue? I know that in the past, when we had a fee associated with the amenities, we'd have to go in and actually get a card and pay a user fee, or you might get a day use, you might get a yearly use. It could be for the pool, it could be for the marina. It was all different types of activities that you could pay for. I've gone back and forth from that. I currently like how it is set up right now, where our membership dues do include all the amenities. I think it's a little easier. I use all the amenities, whether it's the parks, the marina, the playgrounds with the grandkids, all of that stuff we use. So I would like to say continue with that, but I think we need to look at other ways that could be possible to know if we could get a user fee. And as we start to look at our finances, and if we come to a point where our finances, or we don't have the money that we want to continue with some of the amenities, we've got to look at other ways of having revenue come in. So I would be willing to look at that. Any other ideas other than just researching the laws that are associated with our tax status? And would be the first thing I would look at to try to make, to see if it's doable or not. So I think that's pretty, as far as the second question goes, do I support board members? I think it was, what's my opinion about user fees for members and non-members? I think I've kind of answered a little bit, but the non-members, I would, encourage, if we're going to have non-members use, if we can have a fee for that, I would. I would actually like to keep it within Sudden Valley its own, but I know that's not possible as it stands today. So I am open to listening to different types of fee structures for non-members.
Thank you so much, Dave. Next up, we have Brian Cope. Do you need the question again, Brian?
No, thanks. I have it, Josh. Thank you. Yeah, so first off, there were, this summer, in number of mediums, there were many claims made with no evidence that we had a large number of non-residents using our spaces. I know that many of my own neighbors were going to the lake more often due to COVID, and that they were working from home due to altered work schedules. A number of times I was down there and saw community members and neighbors whom I knew having a good time down there, and a lot of families enjoying themselves in the water and such. Second, I mean, due to a change in our tax status, which was made in 2010, and this cuts to some of the things that Dave was saying, our common areas such as parks and beaches are open to the public, of course. The reasons given for this change, though, and this cuts to the transparency issue that the Forward group has been harping on for sure. The reason for this change has never been transparent, and the narrative that it was done due to back taxes being owed is simply untrue. The false narrative is still being used, which concerns me greatly. And that is, it's part of a larger pattern of a lack of transparency that has hurt our community and provides the need to be more transparent in the future. As for the fees, I support them. But they need to make sense, right? So we have to make sure that we actually have non-residents using our spaces, which we're not sure we do at this point. And for example, without knowing how many non-residents are using the spaces, it makes no sense to make changes such as using parking passes. It might be that the cost to implement and enforce such a change could be a complete waste of money and result in unnecessary spending of our dues, which could be put to better use. But to Dave's point, I'm open to it for sure. Yeah, I'm open to it. Use fees for members should be a community decision. When the rec special assessment ends, residents will have to decide how they want to fund things such as the pool and the gym. As a gym user, I'd be happy to pay a small fee to use the gym, but as a board member, if it's not something most people feel is important, then I can, go join a gym elsewhere, or do some push-ups at home or something. I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Kim?
Yes,
Hi, Kim.
ma'am.
Hi. Do you need the question again, Kim? Or
No, I have it here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So regarding the question, I hear a couple of issues. I hear, crowded amenities, and then I also hear use fees. With respect to crowded amenities, I'm going to piggyback off of a point that my fellow Forward member Brian brought up. What is the evidence that the crowds of our beaches and parks are as a result of non-residents? Do we know for sure that the people that were there don't live in Sudden Valley? It's due to COVID, a lot of folks are trying to get out of the house. You can't travel. So I am certain that the use of our parks and beaches was increased this year, but who knows whether those were non-residents. In my opinion, as someone that teaches about equity and inclusiveness, I would like to see parks continue to be open to the public. In the past, Dave talked about how the community was closed and it was private. And that was something that was in the past, and that's not the way Sudden Valley is now. Think of it this way. If you go to town and you go to Bellingham and you go to Boulevard Park, do you want to pay a use fee? Or do you enjoy going to the parks in town without any fees? I think it should be the same here. We are an open community. It is not gated. So I think with respect to equity and inclusiveness, let people use the beauty of our community. Now, when it comes to use fees, if we're talking about trying to monetize our resources, That is a bit of a slippery slope, as Dave mentioned and as Brian mentioned. Our tax status as a 501c4 states that our amenities need to be open to the community, lest we open ourselves up to paying taxes for our change the tax status to where we do have to pay taxes. So that needs to be looked into with research and speaking with attorneys before I would make any decision on that, because I wouldn't want to put Sutton Valley in a precarious situation where all of a sudden we're opening ourselves up to taxes because we're charging use fees. So that needs to be looked into. So
Kim, you have 1 minute.
thank you. So I'm obliged to want to look at all of our assets with respect to user fees, but I believe that our dues as community members of Sutton Valley, our dues should pay for our amenities and we should not be charged. If we want to charge outsiders, I would be willing to look into that to see if it's financially possible. But I believe that as community members, our dues should include that and they should be available to us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Joel Dobbins, you're next. Do you need the question again, Joel, or are you okay with?
I think I'm good.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you, Liz. You're doing a great job, by the way. You and Josh. Sorry, I'm trying to get some more time from you guys here. All right, so yeah, first off, I can't pretend to be neutral on gates. I don't want gates for our community. I'm open to a whole lot of stuff, and if everybody voted for it, if that came to be, I would accept it, but I can't pretend that that's that I'm neutral on it at all. As far as the beaches are concerned, I say that because that was suggested as a solution to this problem of overcrowding, is to put a gate in and don't let people in who aren't members or guests. So I did, when this was a hot topic over the summer, I emailed our public safety manager, and I'll read you the question that I asked. And this is just related to transparency. So it boiled down to asking, can you confirm that there have been an elevated number of incidences, not only in Sofield Park, but in all parks in the last month related to illegally parked vehicles, public urination, and littering? Perhaps answer as to why calls to security would go unanswered. This was a member's concern. And also what recourse a member has in that situation. The situation being that security doesn't answer. We're paying for security. It was said that they weren't answering calls. What recourse do we have is what I was asking there. And so what I got in response was details about data mining. And I was told that the estimate to get an answer to this question would be about probably around $4,200. And if I was prepared to pay for that, we could discuss invoicing options on how to hear back from that. And that didn't seem right to me, that I couldn't get an answer, even just on what recourse a member has if security doesn't respond to a phone call. Am I at 2 minutes? No, did I start?
You have 1 minute left, Joel.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I started the clock early here. I know this is a super important issue to a lot of people, and I don't want to play that down at all. My feeling on it is we can't find a solution. So I work as an account manager. I didn't mention my job during my little introduction, but I work as an account manager. We find solutions to IT problems. And one thing that we know for sure is you don't find solutions to problems that you can't explain or describe, and you don't have the data to prove. So we have to know what's going on. We have to know who is actually at the beaches, not just hearsay or anecdotal. As much as every person's voice counts, we can't make $1 million decisions based on one person's experience. So we just have to know what the problem is and go from there and listen to people.
Great. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you, Lisa.
Scott?
Yo, hi.
Hey. So would you like me to read you the question again, or do you
No,
have it?
I understand it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Scott.
Seeing this question come up, and I agree with Kimberly. I wish the type was a little bit bigger so I could read it, but I can read it. With regard to the beaches and the parks or the marina, they are open for the public. In fact, most all our amenities are available. I think the situation that happened this summer was unique. It's not very often that we have the heat that we had. So I don't know how big of a problem in the scheme of overall problems we have here. There was definitely some days that the marina and AMPM park were overwhelmed with folks. We didn't know who was who. But I think there are things that can be looked at. And as I understand, the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee have had some discussion about this issue. And they, as I understand it, are still looking at ways to handle this overcrowding. Some of the things they're talking about are putting in gates that are activated. A member would have a membership card. A non-member would have to purchase a day card or whatever. Now, I see a lot of problems with that and costs and trying to enforce. Security, as I understand it, that weekend was mainly detailed to, excuse me, I'm being distracted by a cat that's on my desk here. Was detailed down there because there were so many folks down there. And you get one security guard per 8 hours, and that's it. And that's what we pay for. And that's what's called for in the paperwork when this place was initially brought up. I think this is something that the membership should have a discussion on. I'm not for excluding people, especially if the law says you can't exclude. Ways to identify, maybe perhaps there's stickers on cars. There's been a lot of things thrown out there, but there's costs and enforcement issues that come up. And I'm not sure that that what happened this summer would happen next summer. And I agree with Kimberly. I'd like to go to Boulevard Park and I don't want to pay an extra fee. With regard to the fees, I think our members are already paying fees. They pay fees to rent a dock at the marina or to dry storage their boats. Golfers have membership fees and cart fees that they pay for and whatnot. So I think we're partially there on membership fees. I don't have any kids at home that use the swimming pools. I don't golf and I don't boat. I use the trails. I use some of the other amenities, but I support them all because there are families here with young kids. There are other folks that enjoy the outdoors, and you know, I support all the amenities, and I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Scott.
Hope I was in my 3 minutes.
Just a little over, but we're gonna blame the cat.
I got a big mouth.
Can
you
we
wanna-
see the cat?
Okay.
She vacated the premises.
Okay, Justin. You're up. Do you need the question again, or do you have it in front of you? Justin?
I'm proving I'm almost 50 here.
Ah,
Okay.
there you go. Thanks, Justin. Do you need the question again?
No, thank you. Yeah, it's going last on the question again. I'm going to be microwaving some of the leftovers here. I definitely think, at the very least, going off of Facebook rumors, as we all know, is not a real good source of news these days. And then again, as we've all been informed, our nonprofit status forces us to allow non-member access. The town I came from in Colorado, we were able to, the town next door to us had a way cooler pool, and we would go and use that, and we'd still get in pretty cheap, and that's maybe something to look at for people outside of the community. But again, that's something like tax status might dictate. I don't think we need to be overreacting to, even if there's outsiders or others coming in to use our free open spaces. Like Kim said, I don't think we ought to be overreacting any more than if we went to a beach somewhere and got asked to leave. And if there are some concrete problems and some issues arising, especially maybe if COVID continues and more people are seeking outdoor space to use, we can definitely look at the logistics of a little bit more security on what turn out to be prime times at beaches or maybe parks, just for a presence and for some objective eyes to look at what's going on. And we also have to remember we're part of Whatcom County. We have a sheriff as well. And I think we have the ability to say, we maybe might have a little problem here. Can you cruise by a couple weekends in a row? Or just come by once in a while, if possible. As far as use fees, for members, again, I think we already pay in our dues for a lot of the things, especially the non-fee amenities, which would be the marina and the golf course. But I do want some of those already fee required amenities to be self-sustainable too, but that's another subject. And as far as charging non-members, there may even be a legal consideration there that we'd need to ask the lawyer if we could even charge people being a nonprofit. So yeah, rehashing a lot of what people said. I think there's a lot of stuff that needs to be looked at, listened to, and I don't think we ought to be fearing outside boogeymen coming into our parks and such. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all. It's a kind of a tricky question a little bit, but it was something that was pretty prominent during the summer. So I think everyone did an incredible job answering that. Thank you guys all so much. Next up, we'll move to N&E. Take it away, Liz.
Thanks, Josh. Michael Wadsworth. Hi, Michael. I'm gonna go ahead and read the question so that the community knows what you were given to think about. And here's the question. It was briefly touched on during our last forum. It's known that community participation in our election process has grown over the last few years. Do you believe that N&E should take an active role to help further increase voter turnout? If so, what are some ways you would support in keeping our membership active in our elections? Michael?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, my voice and participation in everything has centered around our voice, which is our vote. And I find voting very critical and important in our homeowner association and in local and national government. So I take it very seriously. I was really saddened by the way the vote went the last couple years with the WICUA thing, and then the bylaw change that was ignored, and then the count discrepancies and all that. And I honestly was disappointed in the fact that we had to hire an outside source to do this because of COVID, because I think we could have actually still done this in-house, in my opinion, using social distancing and masks. If they're safe everywhere else, they should have been safe to be used here to do our own voting process. But we didn't, and that's what the majority wanted. So I said, fine. And I did get my ballot, and I filled it out, and then I spilled coffee on it and had to call them and ask them for another one because mine's soaking wet. And they were very good about vetting me and getting me another one coming. So the process is working, just so you know, and all that. So my getting involved in N&E is because I want to see the vote done well. I want to see it done properly. I want everybody to rest assured that their vote has counted. They've been heard. I'd love to see 3,000, however many votes we got, come in on this so everybody's voice is heard and we can truly understand where we're all at and where we're going here together, since we're all in this together. I'm an old school person. I learned to vote by taking my voter's card to the little ladies at the counter, and they checked me off, and I got my ballot, and I went in the little room and I did my vote and came back out and put it in the box, and they gave me I voted sticker, and I was so proud. And I think I was able to chat with people. I'm really social. So I was able to chat with people about how wonderful this is in this country, that we can vote and have a voice, and we're not under a dictatorship or a king or whatever. And
Michael, you're approaching your time.
okay, so for me, this is a huge jump. I believe that N&E should do everything it can to get everybody's voice, and we should really work on getting a safe, secure, and verifiable way to be able to vote online so everyone can do it at home. It would involve a bylaw change and some work on a lot of people's parts, but it could be done, and then everybody can just go at home, get their voice in, and it's done. And so that's, I'm taking a big step into the 20th century saying that.
Thanks, Michael. Nancy Alyanek, do you want me to read the question again, or do you know
No,
it?
thank you. No,
Thanks,
thank you, Liz.
Nancy.
Yes, N&E should take an active role in increasing voter participation, and so should everybody. But so some thoughts on how you can increase it. Well, first of all, you can make it easy to vote and easy to understand. And I got my ballot, and it was pretty easy. It came in this, it had a ballot to mark, it had a security envelope, and it had a mailing envelope that you need to sign, and don't forget that. And it had a little booklet, but the first three are the important parts. So when people vote when their vote counts, and they can think they can make a difference. And when the same people with the same tired ideas dominate the board year after year, voters get discouraged. And I think this year is different because voters have a clear chance to change that board majority. And once you can change the majority, it really will change the direction of the board. So this year you can vote for the Forward Four, Brian, Kim, Joel, and Justin, and look for a change. The other thing you can do to increase voter turnout is turnout increases when there's something voters feel very strongly about voting on, either for or vote against. Voters felt very strongly about the bylaw amendment and bylaw amendment to limit dues increases, and turnout was impressive and probably record-breaking. The other thing you can do is put a controversial measure on that ballot, because nothing stirs people up by some good controversy. So for an example, you could put something like, resolved, let's make Morning Beach clothing optional, and see what you stir up. You'll probably get another record turnout, and I don't recommend doing that because it might just pass. So thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
All right, let's remember to keep this PG. There's kids out there, guys.
Hey, there was nothing bad about that.
See, I'm scared I said something and I didn't even know it. Okay, Steve, it's your turn. Do you need the question again or do you remember it?
I remember it. Thank you.
Great.
Now that we have to keep this all PG, I guess I have to rework all my things. So one of the things that came up during the last meeting, which is also touched upon by this, is we definitely should as NNE be trying to increase and get better voter turnout. And I think one thing that we have been overlooking as a community is the fact that all of our documentation is in English. We have in our community, looking at the 2010 census, 11% of the people living in Sudden Valley between 18 and 64 speak languages other than English. When you go look at the 65 plus demographic, that goes up to, it's 1.2% speak something other than English. So with this, there's a possibility that we may not be getting voters turning out because we aren't offering ballots in their first language. So what I would propose that we do is we look and maybe have a place on the website where people are able to signify, that's the word I'm trying to find, signify what language they prefer to have their information in, and then we try and help support them with getting that information out there. As I said, I'm not going to pretend to understand exactly what that's going to look like, especially with the legal matter of what the ballot measures are going to be. But if we can try and help bridge that gap, that may help with the voter turnout, because we have around 3,200 lots in Sudden Valley. And at that 11%, we have about 352 people that may not have voted because they may not have been able to understand the ballots that were in front of them. And in that could have made a significant difference in last year's budget vote. It also could have made a significant difference in the recall election. So that is something that I think we should definitely look into.
Great. I didn't want to cut you off. Are you finished? Thanks, Steve. Okay, and we're now going on to Karen Williams for ACC. Karen, I'm going to read the question, even though I'm sure you have it. The question is, our bylaws state the committee may also perform such additional, meaning the ACC committee. The committee may also perform such additional duties as the board may from time to time designate. What duties do you think would be appropriate for the BOD, for the board of directors, to designate to the ACC?
That's a tough one, actually. Because the board also has the power to create committees and has been doing so, we have a number of committees other than the ACC. I don't quite I don't think there is much that comes to mind, actually. We do, if I say so myself, have enough work already. There are quite a few applications that we have to deal with. I guess that's what you'd expect for a community of this size. So I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can think of, and this is not that serious, but I mean, we're probably pretty good at assessing the condition of our roads. Because before every meeting, we go and we look at all the properties where people have asked for things, the new construction sites, as well as the new decks and different paint colors and whatever. And so I have driven a whole lot more of Sutton Valley's roads than I ever did before. I guess I wish I could say something that sounded better, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it. Okay, Josh, do you want to?
Yes,
go?
I would love to. So next up, we are going to take audience participation. Can I get some John in here? Hey, John. So we'll take questions from the audience. We also have some questions that were emailed in. We'll try to get to as many as possible. We're going to go till about 9:40, so we have time to give these candidates a little send off with their outros. So remember, if you could ask single questions, that would be super helpful to give everyone a chance to ask. If you have a question for a specific candidate, you can do that. Let's keep everything as civil as possible. And remember, everyone here is a volunteer, except for John, who's doing an awesome job at IT, by the way. But yeah, so let's keep it good, and we'll go from the actual live questions, and we'll intersperse some of the emailed questions in there. And we'll just keep it open. If it's obviously BOD oriented, any board director want to take it, raise your hand. We'll allow as many answers as time permits. So we'll get going.
Okay.
Looks like we have a hand raised, John.
Yeah, we sure do. So we do have somebody with their hand raised. Raul, I'll go ahead and bring you on over here, and you can address the candidates. And you should now be in the meeting. Go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Hi, I live on Gate 3. It's not really a question. It's going to be an idea that some of us have. It's going to be brought up. And Michael just said, be careful what you wish for. We're not going to be careful with this, because the way this system is going, the direction it's going, it's not going to be sustainable. It's just not going to be sustainable, because you have high income, you have middle, and you have just slightly below middle. So our suggestions, and we're working on it, is a tri-level homeowners dues. I used to live in Bothell, Cambria Hills, huge complex. I'll try to make this as short as possible. 3-bedroom, one had 3 bedrooms, some had 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms. And they went based on property value, and they figured it out. So the idea is the higher income based on property value will pay higher dues. The middle pay slightly less. And then the ones below that, which there are some below that here, you got condos, 2-bedroom condos, 1-bedroom condos, which they pay additional fees on their own outside maintenance. And also another possibility is the people who pay less homeowners dues, middle and below middle, perhaps they could pay a fee for using the swimming pool and the gym. So you make up some of that revenue that you might lose with that, making that distinction. Or you could have all residents have the swimming pool and gym free with no charge, but guests of those residents, guests like brothers, friends, have to pay a fee. You can go that route. There's other routes you can go, but it has to be thought out. And there's about 5 of us that are working on it to try to streamline it. And then we'll present it to the board, the new board members, whoever they are, and pass it on to the community and see where it goes. That's it.
Would anyone like to respond to Raul's comments? Joel and then Nancy. Please keep it under 2 minutes, guys.
Yeah. Hey, Raul, it's great to put a voice to a name. At some point we'll meet, but it's good to see you online. It's good to see you here. I just want to say, just as a reminder, I think where your suggestion is coming from is this is an HOA. We're a neighborhood a little distant from Bellingham, but we're close to Bellingham. A lot of what we rely on is there, and the idea of the dues structure. I absolutely understand where you're coming from with that, and I think that's at the same time coming from a place of expecting the dues to continue to go up. And so I just wanted to let you know, I totally understand where you're coming from, and it's my hope that we can keep things to a level where we don't have to even worry about an extra 50% for some people or whatever. Not that I just hope that we can simplify this. Remember that this is an HOA until people decide that it's not. Let's keep dues reasonable. Come up with ideas to make it affordable. That's what I'm hoping. But I like your idea.
Okay.
Nancy?
Yeah, when you tie your dues to a property value, you open yourself up to automatic increases. And given the way property values come and go, that is a very unpredictable thing. And I think all of us want predictability in our dues structure. And that's what we lost when the Community Associations Institute stuck us with the Sudden Valley fix and the unending dues increase. But I really don't support the idea of tying our dues to a property value for the reason of predictability. I understand where you're coming from, though. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. I'll go ahead and return you to the audience and we'll look for any more questions.
Yeah, Liz, could you take a question from our emails?
Okay. This question is for any board member. You know, I'm going to go down to the second one because the first one's sort of already been asked and answered a couple of times here. But any member of the board, would you like to answer this? How do you intend to represent and take into account the needs and desires of all of the members of Sudden Valley Community Association?
Kim, 2 minutes, and then Mr. Dave.
So thank you for the question. I am very passionate about making sure that everyone has a voice in our community. And one thing that as a board member, I would like to stand for is the rule of democracy. And so majority rules. And so sometimes you can't do everything for everyone. So that's why we, from the long range planning committee that I participate on, created a community survey to ask our community what is important to them. We worked very hard to create that comprehensive survey that I understand had not been done that comprehensively since the mid-2000s, and we're supposed to do a survey every year. So we put that together to ask for community input. So based on what the information we received from that survey, we would like to prioritize the wants and needs of what the majority in our community is calling for, which is how democracy works. That's not to say that people in the minority don't get heard. But we do want to focus on what the majority of our community wants and represent everyone, but also emphasizing that sometimes larger groups of people, like the 86% of people that voted on the bylaws passed for a 7% cap on dues increases, that will be honored if myself and Forward are on the board. And so, but also listening to the voices of others as well, in however way we can help them. And thank you for the question.
Mr. Dave Ralston, when you're ready.
Yes, you bet. Thanks for the opportunity to respond. I think Kim captured some of what I was going to talk about was more about the survey itself. I mean, you talk about the wide variety of the community itself, and you do it through surveys, you do it through open public forums, you do that through audience participation at meetings, and there's a wide variety. And I think we have to, as a board member, have to be open to all of those entities and ways that people want to communicate. Some people don't like to get up in front of groups. So, do they submit letters? And so, and the other thing I think is important to note too is just that we treat everybody with respect, whether they're in the low minority. And Kim, I'll agree with you, it's democracy rules on that. But we've got to treat people fairly, and you give a reason why, hopefully you can't. It's just not you're voting against something. You give hopefully good, prudent data to back up the decisions that you make. But I was just going to say, I like the idea of the surveys and opportunities to constantly have input, whether it's through a social media or attendance at the boards. But I think we need to continue that as board members, to have open communication with and that will increase our transparency as a board member. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Dave. So then we have Brian Cope and then Scott Walsh. Brian, when you're ready, 2 minutes begins.
Sure. Yeah, I think we as a group, the Forward group, we can move into an era of healing. And I think, what does that look like? Well, if anybody knows me, I'm a pretty positive person, right? I'm not a person that's going to turn a blind eye to a problem, but I'm a very positive person who gets along with everyone. I have no ill will toward anyone in this community, despite the fact that I disagreed with some folks for sure. But I think we can move on by being honest. Like Dave said, I think that being honest to the community, being transparent, really looking at the budget and creating a more, perhaps it doesn't seem to me that the budget is really transparent. I know there are some operating costs for golf that are hidden in certain places and such. And I think that with transparency such as that, I think we can move forward and heal and really let the community know what's going on, and try to patch things up and move forward in a really sustainable way. Thank you. Thanks for asking the question. That's a great question.
Thank you, Brian. Scott Walsh, when you're ready.
Yeah, what I plan to do is I'm going to hold meetings here and there and everywhere all around Sudden Valley. I'm going to make myself available to meet with anybody, talk to anybody. I currently serve on the board as an appointed board member, and I must say I'm very surprised at the lack of emails that come into the board of directors about the different issues. That is certainly, you can address it individually to board members, or you can address it on a massive level to all board members. I'm going to be doing some things that maybe haven't happened here before. As it is now, even though I've lived here 2 years, I get out and about, and maybe I should be on the ACC, and because I drive the roads as well, looking at things. So I'm going to aggressively ask people their feelings. And I think we're a homeowners association, and these dues go to common property areas. They don't benefit our individual lots per se or anything else. They go to all the amenities that we commonly own. And so I'll be open to ideas, and I will be talking to people. I hope people will talk to me because I have the passion. Since the day I walked in this place, I've been involved. As I said before, I've been on EPC. I'm the chair of the EPC. I'm talking safety all the time. And safety is more than sidewalks and AEDs and a lot of things that people might perceive as safety. And so I care, and I'll be asking people to talk. I'm not going to do it on social media because you'll get into discussion with someone and then you'll have 5 or 6 others jump in on you. And it hasn't been a pleasant experience for me, only speaking for myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Joel, you look like you're itching to answer this question. Go ahead.
Really, really quick. Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say the great thing about surveys and votes is you don't just see who approved what was put out there. You don't see just who answered what in the majority. You see, like with the recall, that even though it failed, an average of around 55 to 60% of people did vote for that. So just because something does pass or fail, that doesn't rule out how everyone else feels. And it's in those moments that you go back and you say, why did over 50% of people, even though it didn't push this beyond to passing, why didn't, why did they vote this way? And so that's something that we have to always ask. If 51% vote for something and 49 don't, why couldn't we come up with a better plan that people could agree on? Why can't we do something that the great majority of the community likes? I think a lot of us like a lot of the same things.
Thank you, Joel. Liz, I believe there was a question in there that came from one member that was kind of for everyone. Do you have that? Will you ask that one?
Yeah, I found it. Okay, so this is for anybody. It doesn't matter what you're running for, board or one of the committees. What challenges do you see in the Sudden Valley community? Oh, excuse me, I misread that, my fault. What challenges do you see the Sudden Valley community will be facing in 2021 that is not currently being dealt with? Do you guys need me to read that again because I kind of messed it up the first time? Or does anybody want to answer that one?
Scott Walsh. Go ahead, sir.
And let me know if you need it again. I missed a word.
Yeah, I actually would like you to read it again if you could.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I missed a word. My eyesight. What challenges do you see the Sudden Valley community will be facing in 2021 that is not currently being dealt with?
Well, I believe the barn is going to be an issue because it's been kicked down the road for forever. It's in LRPC's corner at the moment. Nothing appeared this year with regard to the barn. I think another major issue that we'll have is what are we going to do with the maintenance building? Anybody that's been over there to see it, and I have, it's ridiculous. And so I think that's another structure that we're going to have to deal with. And there's a whole host of others that are probably on a minor list, but the barn and the maintenance building are two biggies. And we just keep kicking it down the road.
Thank you, Scott. Nancy?
Yeah, if we don't do something with Barn 7, that field of empty posts down there, next year we lose our window of opportunity from the county. We need to start. Even if we just clear the forest of posts out and don't do anything else. But the best thing to do would be to start, clear the posts out, and then you get that satisfies the start work clock. And then you get another, I think it's 3 years. It's been a while since I looked at all this, to start building. So if we're going to put something there without having to go through the entire new litany of watershed restrictions, which will greatly add to the price, we need to do it next year, 2021. Thank you.
I believe Kim had her hand up and then Brian Cope.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. I know that a lot of folks are focusing on our physical assets, and I agree with Scott and Nancy that we need to look at those. But a challenge that I see Sutton Valley facing in 2021 is our lack of community unity. I feel that the recall, the dues assessment bylaws passing, and a lot of those things, though bringing record-breaking folks to the polls is excellent, I also believe we're just missing that component of having things that bring us together. There's plenty of reasons why we talk about things pulling us apart, but we don't talk about ways to bring things together. So if you will vote for me and the rest of the Forward team, one of the things that I would like to do is start talking about the human component. If we make people feel good about living here and we feel a sense of community, people will want to take care of their community. If people are fighting and infighting and miserable and fighting over money and scared about their dues tripling and doubling every year, they're not going to want to pay for anything or care about anything. They want to make sure they can keep a roof over their head. So I think if we take care of the human element and make sure that we are all unified in our community, we will build that base for people to care about the physical assets as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Brian Cope, go ahead when you're ready.
Hi. Yeah, I think, something that Joel said earlier, I think that safety and safety for people waiting on the bus, warmth and is important. And yeah, I would say that also something that was expressed, there was an editorial by a former board member who I very much disagree with on a lot of ideological issues about Sutton Valley, and disagreed with everything he said except for a couple of things. He did say we need a forestry plan, which I think we do, and I think we can get, I would love to write a grant for, perhaps for help there, maybe to Western Washington or the UW. Be happy to do that. I think also, and to speak to Scott and Dave, if I get on the board and you guys don't, I hope you guys will help out in terms of safety, in some way, or vice versa, right? Because I'm willing to work on this. It is something that bothers me. I think we need to be, I think the idea that I expressed last meeting of maybe somehow getting residents grab bags or emergency backpacks full of supplies that they'll need, as well as maybe a map to evacuate, things of that nature, maybe as a starting point might be a really good idea, because we're in a situation where climate change is worsening, fires are worsening, things like that. And so yeah, let's be prepared for all that stuff. So that's something that could come up. So, thanks.
You got another thing, Scott? Go ahead. You're muted, sir.
I just wanted to say I very much agree with Brian on what, first of all, whether I get elected to the board or not, I'm going to continue to serve our community in one way or another. As chair of the EPC right now, we're doing a lot of things. We're involved in forestry management because Parks, Trails, and Rec felt it was too big of a issue to deal with at the time. Mark Lester was on that Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee in 2019 subcommittee with the LRPC. He was in Bousty Infrastructure. Infrastructure never got off the ground. So then he came to the Community Safety LRPC committee. Forestry management is very important. Out of that came meetings with Whatcom Conservation Corps and DNR. I can tell you that EPC is working on a forest management plan. They're working on a wildfire protection plan. They're working on evacuation plans for trails as well as roadways. I am very cognizant of Gate 28. That bothers the heck out of me. And so there's a lot of things that are going on with a lot of volunteer committees that I'm not sure the Forward Four know all about. But I'm glad that you're getting involved this year in stuff, and it could only get better. We're volunteers. I don't think there's anyone here that doesn't want to make our community better. We are a homeowners association. We're a very different kind of homeowners association. And whether I'm on the board or not, those that are on the board are going to learn. They're the corporate officers of a homeowners association. There's a lot to it. So that's all I got to say.
Hey, Justin, are you okay if we go to the next question so we get a couple here? All right. Sorry, sir. John, can you bring Kathleen over?
Sure thing. Yeah, Kathleen, I'm going to go ahead and bring you over now. Feel free to unmute, and yep, you're live with the candidates now.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for taking time out of your evenings to join one more Zoom. So I wanted to mention a few things that I don't know if all the candidates are aware of. First of all, Dave Ralston was hugely responsible for the CERT trailer that we have sitting over by the fire station. And Sudden Valley, many of you don't know, has an extremely active CERT team. In fact, we are looked upon in Whatcom County as one of the most active CERT groups. And so, there's a lot of people out here that have taken a lot of their personal time working towards that. And we continue to do that. Obviously, COVID has changed all that. But I think that, Sudden Valley, when we moved here 20 some odd years ago, dues, I think at that time were about $60 a month, and had stayed that rate all the way up until recently, where we're up to the $144 right now. And from our perspective, the dues we pay for what we get are totally in line with what we anticipate in our personal budget. And I just think that there's a lot of people that think that the dues need to be rolled backwards. And I just want to say that I'm in favor of keeping things up and running and not having things fall into disrepair as they have over the years, because we paid $60 a month or $80 a month. And so I don't really have any particular question for anybody. I just wanted to share that information with you guys and tout Dave's horn for getting our CERT trailer, because it's a real big part of Sudden Valley's CERT team out here. And I thank you again for doing another Zoom while we're in COVID. That's all I got.
All right, thank you so much, Kathleen. I'll go ahead and return you to the audience. And Josh, should we see if anybody wants to respond to that?
Sure, John. Sounds great. Would anyone like to respond to that? Justin, since I denied you last time, please go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I definitely see your your point of view as a longtime resident, but as a 2-year resident that moved into Sudden Valley and reluctantly, as a family decision, additionally took on an $89 monthly due, and within a year and a half, 2 years, saw it increase to $144. There is an element to the people that have been here for a shorter term that don't need to be paying for the sins of the past. I think a dues increase needs to pass on merit. You need to sell it to the voters. You can't force it down their throats. And I'm happy to vote for a dues increase if I think it's sold on merit. But when it's passed, actually not passed, it loses a fair democratic election, and it's passed anyway because of a state law that was lobbied for and kind of done behind our backs. That's kind of where someone, maybe that's a more recent resident, a newer resident, which a lot of us are, not all of us. That's a point of view that we don't want to pay for those sins of the past. And I think it's an obligation of a transparent and straightforward board. If we're going to increase dues or decrease them, we need to have a reason and we need to sell it. We can't just say, this is it, what it is, and too bad. That's all I got.
Thank you, Justin. Liz, there was a question that we received today. I believe it's the last one on the list. Would you mind asking that one?
If this is the correct one, I have the last one here. Let's see if it's the one you're thinking of. And this is for, I guess it's for the board, but in my opinion, any of you could probably respond. How do you plan to move past the political rancor and move toward a more unified, goal-driven board that works for the benefit of Sudden Valley as a community? Should I read that again, or does anyone?
I think we got it. Let's go with Dave Ralston because he hasn't had a chance to answer, and then we have Kim and Brian.
Thanks, Josh. I think the way we get past where we are today is, and we've all talked about it, I think as candidates here, being open, being transparent, having fiscal responsibility. I think, Justin, you mentioned having laid out, if you have a dues increase, you got to do it on merit. And, my background in the fire service was about merit. You didn't go out and you had to earn the respect of the community, and you did that through your actions. And so I think we need to continue to do that, and we will get over this. I think everybody on the board that I see out here that's running as a candidate recognizes transparency, honesty, respect are all values that we all want to put into the board. And I believe, that leads to leadership. And I believe that the board sets the culture, and we can change that. We can turn it around, and it starts with the board.
Thank you, Dave. Go ahead, Kim.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. I think I've touched on this in some of my answers prior, but rebuilding the community involves being authentic and transparent. Rebuilding the community means listening to the community. And like I said before, the Long Range Planning Committee put out a survey asking for community input, which hasn't been done in recent years. And so the Forward team wants to move forward with evidence-based data based on what people are telling us in order to know what to prioritize in our community. Additionally, I've mentioned that I would love to bring my community building skills to the board and create opportunities once COVID obviously is over, where we can gather and do social things to get to know one another in a positive way. And I have some ideas about doing things like having Sutton Valley Idol, where people come and show their talents to the community and participate and do fun things together, fun things that include getting to know one another in a positive way. And so using community building strategies and looking at the data from the Long Range Planning Committee survey that Brian and I are on that committee. Scott, you mentioned before the Forward doesn't do committee work, and that's not accurate. Brian and I are on the Long Range Planning Committee, and we're responsible for helping get that survey out. So we are participating currently in our community, and we would like to bring everyone together. Thank you for my time.
Go ahead, Brian.
Kim pretty much covered everything there. Yeah, we worked really hard on that survey, and it was it was a really illuminating process to see the entire needs of the community being laid out in that survey form is fascinating in terms of scope and such. And so, yeah, so I think it will be telling this year. You know, the results of the survey will be helpful, and I think next year we'll be even able to do it better, whomever is on the Long Range Planning Committee, however it is comprised. And I feel like that part of the unity of this community is data, right? Having the data to know who we are, because right now I think we have a felt sense of who we are, right? We kind of know that we want to keep the dues at a reasonable amount, right? That's important to us. We care. We seem to care about roads a lot. We seem to want safety. All of those things. We want a community of neighbors, right, that live together and are stable, rather than just this revolving, you know, like I said earlier, revolving real estate signs that seems to happen from time to time. Wouldn't it be great to have neighbors for 10 to 15 years that whom you love and connect with and such? And so that's what we're trying to really cultivate, is that type of neighborhood that we love. It's a sense of place, you know, it's a sense of place that we're trying to cultivate here. And I think that'll move us past the rancor. I really do. Thank you.
Oh, I'm totally talking muted. Sorry about that. No one give me a warning or anything. So Scott is going to go, and then Joel, and then we're going to go into our closing statements, which we're going to be heading over our bedtime here, but we'll have to wrap this up. So go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say that we do need to heal. We do need to listen to everybody. We do need to come up with the best idea and support it. In the short time I've been on the board, I can see the difficulty in trying to prioritize, needs and wants. And that's the way I look at it: needs and wants, not wants and needs. And it's great. I'm there with Kim on bringing events to the Valley. I want to bring a Celtic Fair or a Scottish Games or something to the Valley, and something that people may or may not have ever seen before. But getting back to, we need consistency. And I think communication, my entire career has been a problem wherever I have been, whether it's been fire department communications, staff communications. Communications seem to always be an issue, because I'm not sure that people are listening to what somebody's saying as much as they're forming their own answer in their head and not listening. I think that we need, I really see a couple of responsibilities here. I see the board having to be able to communicate, as well as the management have to communicate, freely and honestly with the members. But there's also an obligation of the members to listen and participate and give their suggestions. the board has to make the decision. They take all the input and then they are in an unenviable position of taking a position, voting on it, and then even if they're in the minority, support what the board majority voted. And so there is a lot of need I see in educating the community on ACC rules. For example, swales and ditches that abut a person's property, the culvert that goes under their driveway, right? Spelled out in the ACCs, whose responsibility is for that? Yet you hear of all this complaining about Sudden Valley Maintenance not maintaining. They're maintaining the common properties. You are responsible as a property owner for that property in front of your house that abuts your property, not Sudden Valley. I would suggest that whatever the board makeup is, that they go to board of directors orientation and they get a binder and they read that thing. You have a fiduciary responsibility to the association to maintain or even improve the value of their properties. And every one of us is in the association, but yet there is this thing, we versus them. I don't know who's benefiting on the board from whatever's out there. So I'm off my soapbox, sorry.
Thank you, Scott. Go ahead, Joel, and then we'll do closing statements.
Thanks, Josh. So the question is about healing, right? Finding a solution to healing. And so I think we have to first recognize what the hurt is. And based on what I've heard from people, part of it at least is that the association is on track for 2021 to take over $2 million from members that was not permitted with our bylaws, with our vote. We didn't vote for those increases. The state overrode our vote. And more increases came anyway. That's not how you heal. That's lemon juice and salt in the wound. So identify the problem. We can't, when you create a problem, when you injure, and then you say, how are we going to move on from this? You've got to identify it. You've got to figure out a way to make it right. This isn't, how can we move on? We've got to deal with what's happening right now. I don't want to go further somewhere until we can know that we're going forward in the right way. What was I going to say? Oh, and yeah, our fiduciary responsibility should start with not taking money without permission. That's all.
Thank you, Joel. So now we'll go into closing statements. You guys have 2 minutes, and then we'll wrap this up. I know we're getting on our time here. So if you could please take us away, Mr. Dave.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Again, thanks for everybody tonight with the great participation and the emails and call-ins. We all appreciate that. I just want to start and state that I've been part of Sudden Valley for a long time, and it's been my life. And so and a lot of people do know of me by name and know what I have done in the community and know that I've always been open and fair. My working background has covered over 42 years of public service. And it was in with the road department. It's been in with the fire department. I've done many community groups. I'm officially retired, and I still would like to give back to the Sudden Valley community. I think my working experience, working with the public, can lead to the Sudden Valley Board. I want to bring my experience as a community leader to the Sudden Valley Board. I think it will help the community heal. I want this board to gain the respect of the community's membership. You do this by transparency. We've all talked about this, being fiscally responsible, and then you treat members with respect. This is a leadership that's needed amongst the board of directors. I've said it before, the board of directors sets the culture for Sudden Valley. And we have to agree to disagree, but we have to respect everybody. I support the many volunteer groups that have been in the Sudden Valley community, such amazing citizens, and we wouldn't be where we are today without all the volunteers that help. I'm going to continue to support all of their missions and activities that they do. I think I've said before, but I'll just finish this up because I know we're short on time, but my vision for Sudden Valley community is to continue to maintain our assets and the amenities we provide. I will advocate for clear financial goals for our roads and capital programs. I'll do this with understanding that we need to have reasonable and predictable dues that ensure our day-to-day operations are met. We have a limited amount of revenues, and prioritizing is what the board is governed to do. I'll finish up and say thanks everybody for listening, and I'm asking for your support to be a Sudden Valley Board of Director. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Next up, we have Brian Cope.
Hi. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for showing up, running for the board, volunteering, all of that stuff. And thank you so much. We're hopefully can move in after November into an era of healing, right? Where we all can live in a place that is stable, sustainable, and natural splendor of Sudden Valley. I think there's a couple messages I'd like to send to voters beyond please vote forward. We detailed the reasons why, and I believe my colleagues will add to that. But also I would like to promote for voters not to vote for the budget. We're operating under the unfair law and provisions of Kiowa, and as Joel has outlined, this 2 years ago, the board passed a budget that was outside of our newly passed bylaw that was sort of thumbed their nose at us in a sense, or bylaw amendment. We're in an age of COVID-19, and there is 95% collection rate in this budget. This is not a budget that should be approved. If we're prioritizing safety and such, we should perhaps be thinking about actually budgeting money for safety, and so it might have been a good idea not to vote for that. So I really support the board members who didn't vote for the budget as well. And that I wish you all the best, and look forward to serving this community in whatever capacity that I'm needed. So thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Next up is Kim.
Thanks, Josh. I spoke in the Sudden Valley Views about, my background and my being raised for hard work. I've had a myriad of different jobs of which skills that I can all bring to the board. I've worked in administration for police departments, colleges, in real estate. And when I worked in all the administration in those areas, I picked up information on how those areas work. I've also been a flight attendant, and I worked at Western as a family outreach manager. And currently I work in real estate administration, and I also have an equity, diversity, and training business. I can bring all of those skills and information and knowledge. I have a master's degree in education with a background in assessment, which is what I brought to the Long Range Planning Committee to help create the survey. I like to bring all of those skills with the forward slate. I personally stand against the Kiowa law that took our voting rights away. I stand for keeping our community affordable and beautiful. I think that you can do both. I don't think that it's a black and white decision where it has to be one or the other. I think both can be done. And vote forward, folks. Brian Cope, Joel Dobbins, Justin Bauer, and myself. We stand for fiscal responsibility, transparency, authenticity, compassion, unifying, and honesty. If those qualities resonate with you, please vote for us. We will bring that to the board and start the healing process and move this board and this community forward in a unifying sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Next up, Joel Dobbins.
Thank you, Conductor Josh. So this is a lot to talk about. It's a high stress thing. Everybody here is invested. Everybody watching is invested. Thank you, by the way. In my opinion, the people who are watching are going above and beyond. Wouldn't it just be great if we could vote in elections just because we want to be involved and not because we feel like if we don't and if not enough people do, then we're going to lose our houses, and that would just be awesome. I just wanted to say, when you shine a light on something, sometimes you find ugly stuff, and that doesn't make the people shining the light ugly. That's what accountability is. You've got to show what's going on, and that means you can't always be positive. As much as I would love to be positive, and I'm not a huge fan of conflict and confrontation, but this is my home, and this is where I'm raising my family, and I want to stay here. We love it here, and we want to invite other members of our family to live here, and I want to feel good about inviting other members of our family to live here. And real quick, because I didn't talk about my career or anything, I work for a small business, and so I see how that side of things operate. I'm working on my MBA program, so I am studying how corporations operate, corporate responsibility, and I'm seeing both sides, and I'm seeing a lot of failures here. And I don't want to be negative. That's just what I'm finding. And so that's what I'm hoping to change. Thank you. Forward.
Thank you, Joel. Mr. Scott Walsh, ready when you are.
Yes, sir. I'm about going forward, looking out the windshield, not the rearview mirror, what's happened. You know, you have a budget, it goes through a finance committee of volunteers that probably have more experience in financial. I know one of them is on the finance board at Western Washington University. But there is a set of people that hash all this stuff out, and then that is after a general manager and the finance director put a budget together, and then it comes to the board and they go all through it. So I think there is a process there. It's just that Wacoya comes in, you have a state law that trumps our bylaws. Yet Wacoya now says that you have to have one more than half of all the members voting no against a budget in order for it to fail, as opposed to having a body or a bunch of people show up at a meeting and voting for the whole association. I don't like Wacoya for what it's done to our community, but I don't know if everybody understands Wacoya. And those allegations that you keep hearing about on social media and other places, if these are crimes, why hasn't the extra step been taken to criminally charge them? So what I'm about is I'm going to be prepared when I come to meetings. I'm going to listen and hear what the community has to say. I'm going to get out there and talk to people, and I'm going to do my very best to be as professional and decisive as possible, because when you're sitting in that chair, you have to make the decisions. And that's what I'm about. From the time I walked in here, I've been a volunteer. And it's just the way it is. I serve. So thank you very much. And I ask for your vote. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next up is Justin Bauer.
Did it again. Thank you, Josh. I'm running for the board of directors for many reasons. I want to see better fiscal responsibility. We need to address pressing needs before we start shopping for our wants. And we should not be borrowing money, period, including from emergency aid funds meant for small businesses and not HOAs. I want to see our dues put to work for everyone, not just a small group of people looking to force a vision of returning Sudden Valley to its long past roots of being a resort community. I want there to be transparency and accountability on the board and from management and from employees, all of us. Most importantly, I think to be a good, effective board member, you need to listen to the community and listen to their wants, needs, and concerns. I believe being a good board member means listening to and learning from all fellow board members. And if elected, especially listening to all the board members that will be carrying on with their terms and learning from their experience and for how to best serve this community. I have not formed complete ideas or opinions yet on many issues facing this community and this board. If I had already, I would not be doing my job if I get elected. I want to listen, learn, and do my best to represent my neighbors and not tell them what's best for them. Thank you, and please vote forward.
Thank you, Justin. Next up, we'll go to our NNE candidates, and starting with Michael Wadsworth. You have 2 minutes to make your closing statement, Michael.
Thank you. I was going to say something totally different, but Nancy gave me the courage earlier to go ahead and say what I want to say. And a lot of the questions that were asked tonight, I feel were asked through the vein of people who were looking at how things in the past had been done with a board that ignored them more or less completely. If you want change, you can't vote for the same people and the same ideology and expect anything to happen. You have to vote for change. So vote for new people. Let's see what happens there and see if we can get honesty, transparency, and unity in this homeowner association. I agree with Brian. The budget that was passed was done by a board that knew it was probably going to lose, and it wanted to set the incoming board up to fail by strapping it with a 95% collection rate. I don't care who was on there and whatnot. The budget was done in a way during a COVID thing. My unemployment's going to run out in December. Who knows where I'm going to be in January if things don't open up and I don't get to go back to work. So they weren't looking any farther than the end of their nose, which was November. And so I too agree, vote no on the budget, vote yes on the bylaw changes because they're going to help clarify the vote. That's why they were put on there, and vote forward. Thank you.
Nancy?
Yeah, I'm in the enviable position of not having to campaign for what I'm running for. because there are more slots than candidates. So I'm going to make another pitch for let's get out of the Community Associations Institute. We spent about $5,000 last year on their members and memberships and summit to train lobbyists and whatever. We need out of that. Those people have done nothing for members except to stick them with WACOA. And that is not helpful for the members. So let's defund the turkeys and withdraw from the Community Associations Institute. And Joshua, was it turkeys okay, or do I have to?
I am not the hall monitor.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Nancy. Steve, please go ahead when you're ready, sir.
My internet connection seems to be a little wonky, so I might digitize a little bit here on y'all, and I'm sorry. Basically, I agree with what my mates are saying. I mean, I guess that's the best way to put it, because again, I look forward to working with both Nancy and Michael. Please vote no on the budget, and I look forward to working with us in the future. Sorry. Things are jittery, so I don't know if you guys are hearing any of this. So I'll just wrap up my time.
Weird.
Thank you, Steve. And then last but definitely not least is Karen Williams. I want to say thank you to Karen Williams for hanging with us this whole time as the sole ACC candidate here. I really appreciate you coming to this forums and answering the questions that you get. So thank you so much. And please make your closing statement.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, I've kind of enjoyed working on the ACC so far, and I would like to continue. By the way, we do have a forest plan or a forest study. I don't remember which it was. In 2015 they did. It was quite interesting. It's on the website somewhere. It does only address trees owned by the association, not trees on our own private properties, which I think our whole forest is kind of one thing, really. So it would be nice to have a study on the whole thing. And also a little more about fire. Fire has been in the news recently in a very scary way, and we do have a lot of trees, and so that is something I definitely want to learn more about. But anyway, I look forward to serving on the ACC. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. And I guess that's it. Sorry we couldn't get to like every single question, but I think everyone did an amazing job. I know how tough it can be being in this position with a lot of different opinions and everything. I was totally worried that I was going to be muted right there after saying that, but I want to thank you all for taking part in both of these forums. I've been just as nervous as you guys have, and you've made it really easy, and I think everyone's done a wonderful job, and I really appreciate everyone stepping up for the community. I think we can all agree that this is a pretty wonderful place that we live in. Karen, in your bio, you mentioned about the Pacific Northwest and seeing that everywhere. That was really inspiring. I really like that. But yeah, thank you guys, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thanks. Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Oh, sure thing, Josh. Thank you, everybody. Thanks,
Josh.
Josh, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks, Josh and
everybody.
Liz.
Bye.
Good work.
Guys.